the mother-in-law. Once upon a time there lived a king and a queen, and that queen had a wickedly evil mother-in-law. When the king went off to war, the old queen had her daughter-in-law locked up in a musty room in the cellar, and her 2 little boys were locked up with her. One day the old queen found herself with a craving for human flesh, and she thought, "I would love to eat one of those 2 little boys." Upon that thought, she summoned the cook and ordered him to fetch one of her grandsons from the cellar and have him slaughtered and prepared for cooking. "What kind of sauce should I prepare?" asked the cook. "A brown one," replied the old queen. The cook went down to the cellar and he said, "Oh, my queen, the old queen wants me to slaughter and cook your son tonight." The young queen was deeply distressed and said, "Why can't we take a baby pig instead? You can cook it just as she wanted and tell her that it's my child." The cook did just that and presented the roasted suckling in a brown sauce. "Here is the child." And the old queen ate it with a hearty appetite. Soon after, the old woman thought to herself, "The flesh of that child was so delicate and tasty, I'll just have to eat the other one too." So she again summoned the cook, sent him to the cellar, and commanded him to slaughter the second child. "In what kind of sauce should I cook him?" "A white one," replied the old queen. The cook went down to the cellar and said, "Now the old queen has ordered me to slaughter and cook your second little son." The young queen again begged of the cook, "Take a suckling pig and cook it the way she likes it." So the cook did just that and presented the suckling pig to the old woman in a white sauce, as she had requested, and she ate it with an even heartier appetite. At last the old woman thought to herself, "Now the children are in my body, and I can eat the young queen herself." She summoned the cook and ordered that the young queen be made for her dinner. When asked how she should be prepared, the old queen replied, "Well spiced." Once more the cook went to the cellar and spoke to his queen. A suckling pig would not fool the old woman this time, but she told him to prepare a young deer just brought in from the hunt instead. Again, the cook did as she said and brought to the table a well-spiced venison, which the old queen ate with the heartiest appetite of all. Oh, just imagine the plight of the poor young queen locked away in the cellar with her 2 princes. As time went on, and her husband did not return, it was more and more difficult to keep the little boys from their fussing and crying. And then came to pass that the old queen, her appetite piqued, would roam the halls of the castle in the dead of night, hoping to pick up the scent of a tender young servant child who should be hers for the eating. As the old woman crept quietly through the cellar one night, she heard a baby's sudden wail and knew at once that the young queen and the princes still lived. Enraged at the cook's deception, the old woman ordered a large cauldron to be brought forth and filled to the top with vipers, toads, and serpents. Then were the cook, the young queen, and her 2 sons brought before her, and she prepared to throw them all into the pot to meet their death. It happened just as the old woman's victims were about to be tossed into the slithering stew, there came a clattering of horses in the castle courtyard. Then the old queen knew that the king had returned from battle, and he would surely see her punished for her wicked appetites. So afraid was the old woman of what his revenge could hold in store that she threw herself into the deadly cauldron, and was quickly eaten up by the writhing, snapping reptiles. When the king heard of the old woman's death, he allowed himself a brief moment of mourning, for she was, after all, his very own mother. Then he gathered his queen and his 2 sons to his breast, and was joyous and thankful for their life.